Hello there. I just wanted to make a quick video. I won't keep it for long, or I don't know, whatever. I guess I just wanted to make a video about a couple different things. One, I wanted to give a shout out to CTV and all those guys. I'll get to that in a second. Their video today, or their live stream on the Cutting Edge, John Pounders and John Hall. Salute. They're probably my favorite YouTubers out there. One of. But I woke up today feeling spiritually oppressed, I guess is the word. You know, where it's just basically like, well, with the PTSD or whatever you want to call it, anxiety, all that nonsense, like flashbacks, traumatic past, all that. Sometimes it's like, well, the insomnia is horrible, but sometimes it's like I'll wake up, or I'll lie in bed, or I'll try to sleep, and I start to feel like I'm having a heart attack almost. And what I would call uncontrollable morbid thoughts, traumatic thoughts, like the devil creeping into your head, uttering blasphemies and disgusting things, or just idle thoughts. It's like, and you catch yourself saying, where did that come from? It's like, and you just rebuke the thought, capture it, and cast it out. And I pray, praise be to Yeshua, Jesus, the Son, Yahuwah, God the Father in heaven, for salvation on the cross and stuff. Other things lately, oppression, like I was saying, John and the guys at CITATIONS were talking about, I'll get to that in a second, about the idea of doorways in your life, that sometimes God is putting things in your path like that just to teach you a lesson as far as something you need to know. And sometimes it's actually demonic oppression. But like, for example, say, you know, like lustful thoughts or angry thoughts or whatever, you got to ask yourself, like for me, I slowly, as I've been a Christian, I'm starting to get rid of all the garbage that I used to obsess about. Like, I used to love gangster shows, gangster flicks, whatever you want to call them. Like back in the day, hanging around with a bunch of psychos, doing a bunch of psycho crap, like even like John Pounders, who has a similar background to me, like knows what that means. Like, it weighs on your soul, and so you have these morbid flashbacks. It's like once you see something, you can't unsee it. Or even like something as silly as using the bathroom. It's like thoughts popping in your head while you're in the commode, or things that you don't want to be thinking about. And it's like the devil's just, like that song. It's like, the devil whispers in my ear, it's time for your curtain call. But don't butter yourself all up with alcohol. Step aside, let the whistler through, 'cause there really ain't no place at all for folks like me and you. So don't go downtown. And like, even like, well, I'll get to this here, because I got a bunch of slides. I'm just looking at them on the screen here that I'll switch to and read them off. Just things, you know, that I wanted to talk about. So here we go. So yeah, for sure, I want to give CTV, all those guys, John and John, a big shout out. As I was saying in the little intro thing, waking up today with spiritual oppression, whatever you want to call it. Like I was saying in the chat, in the live stream they did this morning, it felt like I was going to have a heart attack. Like my chest was caving in, extreme hypertension, pondering it as they were saying, you know, the things in our life that might be letting demonic entities in unknowingly, such as like how sometimes I'll find myself watching shows desperately in need of a laugh, like comedies, very important to me because it helps cut through trauma. And so I'll watch shows like Trailer Park Boys, and they're extremely vulgar. Obviously, I'm not recommending them. And some of it is funny, but sometimes it's just extreme and gross. And I realize I got to eliminate stuff like that in my life. I like watching certain podcasts like Owen Benjamin. A lot of people can't stand that guy. They say he's this, they say he's that. But he makes me laugh. And as a Christian, it's getting harder and harder to find like-minded comedy, because most of it is just vulgar and gross, you know? But also, since I became a Christian, I've noticed it seems like the oppression is getting worse, which is not uncommon, I've heard, like for Christians, in a sense that once you become a Christian, the devil's going to ramp up his attacks. He's going to come at you even harder, figuratively and literally. Now, on the other side of the coin, with my PTSD, whatever, MKUltra, whatever happened to me, I can't really remember much before grade 7. I'll get into that on the next couple slides, but I'm kind of an isolationist, a shut-in. I don't really have any friends in real life. I almost never go out. People ask me, are you a TI, targeted individual, and all that? I am. But at the same time, I isolate myself on purpose, almost sort of as maybe a defense mechanism. Which also brings me to other things, like lately in my life I've been realizing that I've been kind of ashamed about, repenting about. Praise be to Yeshua, Jesus Christ, and I repent, you know, like getting angry and hostile. And even like in my videos, which to me are kind of like keeping a diary or a journal. A person can go back and rewatch their videos and it encapsulates what they were going through at that time. And it's like rereading your journal and learning what you can, you know. And sometimes I go back and I realize how hostile and aggressive I was, and it just fills me with shame. Or even like the topic of like Donald Marshall, little beef with him. It's like, it's just absurd how I let people get my goat. And so I pray for guys like that. I pray for people. Don't give in to the hard-hearted hostility that, you know, I've been known to do. Like, I pray, God, forgive me for all that stuff. As far as like even being judgmental, hostile, assuming things, much less the horribleness of bearing false witness. I don't want any of that in my life, as it were, and so shedding it a little bit at a time. But I remember even once before my fallout with Jesse Spots, talking to him, he mentioned he doesn't want to lead anybody the wrong way, so he's very careful in what he talks about, which is fine and dandy, you know. And that's sort of the same thing I want to be known for, is, you know, even like Owen Benjamin would say, I might be wrong, but I'm not lying. And I don't want to bear false witness against people. I don't want to lead people down the wrong path, which, even coming back to the topic of cloning centers, I don't even know what is real and what is fake with that anymore. I'm starting to think guys like Donald Marshall were put on the scene on purpose just to make it all sound so ridiculous that it discredits people like me trying to warn people about the MKUltra program. And so then, as far as posting about this, it led me to a conversation with Rachel talking about how the enemy's attacks are amping up, and that for her it's been hell the last 12 months, trials and tribulations, and having to separate herself from different situations and focus and pray. And I agree, it's bonkers actually how heavy it is. And I says, sometimes it's more than I can bear. It's like, sometimes I just think, like, dose me up with lithium, commit me to the loony bin, and, you know, just put me away forever, I'm done. That's it, stick a fork in me, I'm done. And it's like, sometimes I just feel like I got nothing left. And the hypertension from the PTSD, whatever it is, plus the chronic insomnia for me is like a living hell. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. I don't know if it is a direct result of the MKUltra program, but I've heard that that's part of it. They want to create super soldiers, spies, or whatnot that can stay up for days on end. And my record is something like 92 hours. Like, that was like almost 5 days, I think. And so, obviously, this comes back to my testimony. And like I said before, I'm not too sure completely what happened, obviously, because everyone's dead. I can't ask them. I know something happened because I can't remember much of anything before grade 7. And that's not weird or anything. I know people who say they remember things when they were 3. I've heard of people saying they remember things in the crib. Me, grade 7. I remember one of my first friends, this blind kid named Dale. But as far as even the topic of my dad, I think he would have experienced what people call satanic ritual abuse firsthand. Whereas I seemingly got what I call the trickle-down effect, because I've been told he tried to break away from that, but he was also into occultic crap like tarot cards and witchcraft. The name Marimor the Red, that's even, like, that's his name or whatever. And so I don't know what happened, but I know something happened. I mean, that's what I mean. Like, it's so convoluted, I don't even know what's real and fake anymore. But I do know what I can prove, And what I've been seeing lately is obviously a lot of people making excuses for Freemasonry, but I pray for these people to have better discernment. Because of my own family's history with the lodge, this has become a very personal matter for me. So maybe it's time to make this updated video, my testimony. All the way up in Canada, eh? Take off, eh, you hosers? So, up until a few years ago, basically, I was an agnostic. I believed in God, but I felt we as humans didn't have the right to quote-unquote name God. Even now, finding out the word God doesn't even mean what we think it means. It just means archon. But I always believed in God. I knew evolution and the Big Bang was nonsense. Nothing created everything. That was dumb. But I felt, like I said, as humans, we don't have the right to name him. So after my father got clipped, like I said, he survived the hit and went septic from all the knife wounds and died a few years later. After that, I found out about Grandpa. I can't remember if it was Dad's Bible or one of his books, but his obituary was in it. Grandpa's obituary. And so, reading it, I discovered who he was, So my dad knew. I don't know if he really knew what the Freemasons were all about. I don't even know if my dad was a Mason. But basically, after that, I was like, whoa, I became a Christian because of that. It's like my friends and family back home think I've lost my mind, but it's like, I found out my grandpa was a Luciferian. For me, the logical conclusion was to become a Christian, not to become that. Like my grandpa, 33rd level Sith Lord, Scottish Rite Freemason spook from the OSS out of the World War II era. He was one below general, like Major General, I think, Canadian British Special Forces in the OSS, Operation Paperclip. And later, he was given an entire RCMP detachment to run. Now, for Americans out there, that's like a cross between your FBI and the state troopers, And then in Canada, our version of the CIA is CSIS. We're part of the Five Eyes. If you Google what the Five Eyes are, the surveillance system like MI6, Mossad, all these intelligence agencies, they all came out of the OSS. So now I didn't find out about any of this till after Dad got himself perished, like I says. And he was a low-level nobody, mobbed-up psychopath drug dealer. And the reason he got clipped, basically, is because if you're going to sling dope, and I ain't talking about cannabis, if you're going to sling cocaine like he did, and shovel it into your face like he did, like a fool, you better have an army to back you up, because someone's going to come and try to take your loot. And that's what happened to him. But after Dad died, like I said, I found Grandpa's obituary talking about how he was a GCIG, Grand Sovereign Inquisitor General, a 33rd level Freemason Illuminati underboss, or assassin, or both. But needless to say, finding that out, it hurt way more than Dad dying. I mean, I would say it broke me. I'm trying to rebuild my life. I often refer to myself as a broken toy. But it was after that, I realized you got all these high-up guys like the Bush crime family, the Clinton crime family, Obama, the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, the secret bloodlines of the Illuminati, Bilderberg groups, all these goofs worshiping Lucifer and Satan. And I realized really fast that the war between heaven and hell is all real, and we better choose a side because the devil owns the fence. So I didn't ask for any of this, obviously, to be born into an Illuminati family, spewing all sorts of 33rd degree Freemasonry. And in my darkest hour, about 7 years ago, give or take, I saw Gonzo Shamira's film Age of Deceit. Big shout out. He's made 3 of them now, and everything clicked. I was living on Vancouver Island at the time, and I remember dropping to my knees in the middle of the night with insomnia, of course, and accepting Yeshua, Jesus the Son, and Yahuwah, God the Father in heaven as my Savior and my God above, the one true God. And since then, my life has gotten better, but for the first time in 37 years on this earth, I realized all my sins and bad habits and addressing them and whatnot. It was such an omnipresent type slap to the face, wake-up call, that after that, everything began to change for me almost overnight. And so I knew I had to do something about it and get in the game, as it were. Sitting on my hands, I felt like I was wasting something. So I started making YouTube videos like this. And while my life has gotten better, I have found I do get more spiritual attacks. Like the devil gets in your ear and messes with your head kind of thing. And yes, I'm still rough around the edges, obviously. I can still be angry and hard-hearted. I pray God help me with that every day. It almost seems like a defense mechanism in some ways, because it's like, if I'm not angry, I'll be sad. And it's like, psychologically speaking, it's almost like I'd rather be angry than sad, you know. Or sometimes in my videos you hear me being harsh or tough love or drop the occasional S-bomb, you know. But as I said before, if my story helps even one person, then mission accomplished. So now I just try to take it one day at a time. As I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, because I know God is with me as I tread every day. But as far as the oppression and the insomnia, I just keep praying. I mean, I've struggled with alcoholism in a way, not because I enjoy getting drunk. In fact, I like being sober-minded, you know. But alcohol, I can have a few beers and it's guaranteed sleep. Whereas if I don't have any booze or have a beer, I will lie there sometimes for hours and hours and hours and hours before I can finally get to sleep. And even then, if I start having those kind of, I don't know, flashback anxiety attacks, like I said, it makes me feel like my chest is going to cave in, where I have to just get up and putz around, because if I lie there anymore, I feel like I'm going to die. Or what people would call spiritual bondage, or even like succubi, incubi, sleep paralysis, things like that. And so, like this prayer here, I pray every day that people are protected from such things in the mighty name of Yeshua Jesus Christ. And I do pray for guys like Donald Marshall. But on that topic, again, I want to maybe get into that a little later, because I don't know what the deal of any of that is. All I know, the only truth that I know, is Yeshua Jesus Christ and the Word of God, you know. So I start there and then branch out. But as far as just breaking bad habits and whatnot, that's also like a one day at a time thing. I mean, for me right now, it's breaking my anger, my need to lash out, you know, at things that I perceive to be threatening. Like, for example, even like someone attacking me verbally or physically, my first urge is to crush them. And that's just the flesh, and I gotta understand that that's just the visceral sin of the flesh, and that you have to capture those idle thoughts and rebuke them. And I pray Jesus help me with that every day, because I don't like being angry all the time. Obviously, cannabis helps, and I know some people, they get all hostile about that I smoke cannabis. I know Jesse Spott's got in my face about it. A lot of people, a lot of Christians think it's bad or something, but you know what? The Bible says be sober-minded. Cannabis helps me calm down. I am still sober-minded when I smoke. In fact, I could still do calculus, you know, after smoking a doobie. It's a mood stabilizer for me. It melts away the anger. It might even be this fallen world's version of manna. Like, did you know you can live off of eating cannabis flowers and distilled water with nothing else? The seeds and the oil. It even cures cancer, putting it in remission, you know? So, other than cannabis, I don't support any kind of drug or any of that, like my dad or whatever would have. But as far as insomnia and stuff like that, you know, I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. So for me right now, that's, like I said, my big things is struggling to conquer that alcoholism, runs in my family, defeating my anger, and just breaking the bad habits. Like, I'm almost 50 years old, and it's like I'm spending my 40s trying to repair everything I broke in my 30s and my 20s. But I'm just a piece of stinking awful, a sinner. Without Yeshua Jesus, I'm nothing. And so people want to mock me for being a Christian. I don't care. You can think what you want. I pray for you. But like, I'll put citations in the description section below. There's much evidence that the Bible is real. It's just people don't want to go there, because then they'd have to reevaluate their lives. And seeing as how hard it was for me, I can understand why people don't. But anyway, I guess as far as just this video, I just wanted to get it off my chest. It's kind of therapeutic for me making videos. Like I says, I don't care if one person sees this or a million. As long as it helps somebody, you know, that's kind of the point, you know. Even like the death threats and whatnot I've gotten for this, like, get real. I've had guns put to my head before, so I'm not too concerned with some losers online, you know, trying to gaslight me or social shame me. That doesn't work with me. But I guess, yeah, I don't know. That's all I got to say about that. So yeah, all that being said, I guess, like, if my story helps even one person, then mission accomplished. And as far as suffering all these trials and tribulations, just endure to the end. Pray, walk it out. Eliminate the negative things in your life that might be holding you back. And for the love of God, don't make the same mistakes I made. I pray people, like kids coming up today, are so enamored by this stuff. It's on the television. Like every other show now, the main character is a villain. And, you know, you'd never see that back in the day. I remember even The Sopranos was probably one of the first ones. And I don't know what else to say. I mean, just pray and endure till the end. And hello there. I wanted to make a quick video here, or maybe a longer video, I don't know. But on the topic of, and I felt almost called to do this, well, because of the events of the last 3 days, but on the topic of altered states. And you might be able to hear construction or the wind outside. It's a loud day out there, so I'm just going to try to get this done up. But basically, I'm talking about altered states like MK Ultra altered states, fractured personalities, and basically a good way to look at it would be like Dr. Bill here.
Well, anyhow, this wonderful guy, along with many other Nazis, was allowed to get out of the country with help of the OSS, which is the ancestor of our CIA, through a thing called Operation Paperclip, because they wanted his knowledge. Just like they wanted the rocketry knowledge of Wernher von Braun, even though Wernher von Braun was a Nazi. And so many of these Nazi scientists came to America, and ultimately to Canada, which is where Mengele was for a while. And then they would try and see how much pain these kids could take, and how many times they could get to fragment them. Well, ultimately, the Canadian government found out about this, because they were doing this without the Canadian government knowing about it. These people from the CIA were up in Canada torturing Canadian children. And they tried to prosecute them, but they fled the country, so they sued the CIA. The Canadian government sued the CIA. It was a big stink, and they ended up settling out of court for an untold sum, and MK Ultra basically vanished in the underground.
And so basically with altered states, you get this extra personality. It's like they're housing in your body. They are a part of you, your fractured soul. And it's different than a demon or a Nephilim, like these demonic Nephilim scum that have been lingering, watching us for thousands of years. No, way different. This is a piece of your soul that's been fractured off and developed into a completely distinct, separate personality to protect you from whatever it was that traumatized you into doing it in the first place. Now, with the MK Ultra program, it's by design. They want to see how many times they can fracture the core host. And then the people, the victims like me, end up spending the rest of their lives a complete wreck. And, you know, on and on it goes. But, so this was triggered, for me at least, by my insomnia. My record's like 92 hours. And that time, I'm pretty sure everything was okay, I think. But with the last 3 days, I was like getting close to 50 hours where I was up with insomnia. And so I caved in to the pressure, whatever, just sick of it. And therein lies the catch-22. You know, I pray Jesus protect me from such things. You know, I pray in the mighty name of Yeshua, Jesus Christ. But if you make the mistake that I made last night, you bring this stuff on yourself. So in that regard, you know, I'm a bit of a Homer Simpson sometimes. Don't. And so I had a few beers just to fall asleep, but I shifted at the end. I don't think I did too many. I don't think I did. Didn't do anything weird or anything. Wherein lies the risks. If you do that, you could black out, shift into an altar, and then you're stuck in that altar till you sleep. Oops. You've already gone to bed.
At Stanford University near San Francisco, Dr. Harvey Weinstein is an associate professor of psychiatry, and he also counsels students. But he refused to do his postgraduate work in psychiatry at McGill's Allen Memorial Institute because there his father had been used as a human guinea pig. He says he became a psychiatrist to unravel the horror of what happened to his dad, Louis Weinstein.
My father was a 49-year-old Montreal businessman who was successful and dynamic and whose life was destroyed by a series of treatments. He was someone who became anxious for a relatively short period of time, who went to get some help, and whose life was totally shattered by the experience.
His father was one of the more than 50 patients treated here at the Allen Memorial Institute under a secret program designed to develop brainwashing techniques. The Allen has an international reputation as a renowned psychiatric institution. But in the late 50s, the patients knew nothing of a cascade of mind control experiments underway, including sensory deprivation and worse.
He went in one winter evening and was put to sleep for approximately 2 months. He was given shock treatments of various kinds, gradually building intensity to an intensity and a frequency that was not certainly the routine or standard of the time.
Electroshock is a standard but controversial treatment for extreme depression. However, at the Allen, the shocks were administered not 2 or 3 times a week, but 3 or 4 times a day for weeks on end. Patients were reduced to vegetables. It was called depatterning. And on top of that, the patients were given dangerous experimental drugs.
He was given a whole slew of drugs, including amphetamines, likely PCP, insulin comas, barbiturates of all kinds, LSD. He was then forced to listen to recorded messages.
It was called psychic driving. Once the patients were drugged and shocked to break down their minds, they were bombarded with taped messages for up to 16 hours a day. This is how one patient remembers it.
At the end of the time, my father was someone who was unrecognizable to me or to anyone else in the family or his friends. He was someone who could not function in this world, whose perspective didn't extend beyond the next 5 minutes, who had no recollection of the past, and almost no recognition of the present.
The CIA was behind it. Documents pried loose in 1979 showed that through a front organization, the Central Intelligence Agency funded what was called the MK Ultra Project.
Anyway, so you can do stuff, stupid stuff, when you're in an altered state. I just sent some family, I'm not going to get into it, but I sent family texts about MK Ultra and cloning stuff. And then I apologized this morning, told them what happened. And I also sent myself some messages last night. I don't know what to make of it. I found them in the recycle bin in my computer. Not deleted, though, completely. You know, I have to double delete everything with Windows. You know, they just go into the recycle bin and they can just sit there. I'd normally just delete shit, but I don't know why I did that. But anyway, I haven't looked at them yet. I'm kind of hesitant, but... As far as the topic of alters, you know, and like I always say in my videos, don't believe a word I say, go research everything I say. Make up your own mind.
The truth is bad enough. The truth's bad enough. And if you tell the truth, you have credibility. And credibility means people will listen to you. Credibility means things will be tended to. When you lie and people find out that you're lying, and it's easy, it is so easy to discover, then you have no credibility. You become a liar. You become somebody with no confidence factor. You become a rumor monger. You become a minion of the old, who was it? Who was it that was billed as the great deceiver? Wonder who that was. See, whenever you spread a rumor, whenever you tell a lie, whenever you stretch the truth or sensationalize something, and I don't care what the reason is that you do it, you become an ally of the great deceiver. Somebody called him Heinrich Himmler. Somebody else called him Lucifer. Somebody else called him Satan. You can call him anybody you want. But listen to me very carefully. He's not anybody I want around me. His minions are not anybody that I want to know or be associated with or hear from. His minions and allies and supporters are not the people that I care about. You understand? You want to be on his side? Stay the hell away from me. Don't call me. Don't write me. Don't reference me. Don't email me. I don't want anything to do with you. If you're a spreader of rumors and lies and disinformation and sensationalization and all of this other bullshit. Do you hear me, sheeple? I don't know why it makes people so angry. You know, if all get off your butts and do the same research that I do, you would know the same things that I know, and you shouldn't be angry or jealous or upset. What you should be is thankful for having forewarning so that you can act upon it. But do you ever act upon anything?
Go Google MKUltra alter shifts caught on video. There's one of that one guy, I can't remember names, I'm programmed to forget names. Paul Bernardi, I think his name was, on trial, being recorded for a hearing or a deposition.
Before we swear the witness, I want to ask the defendant or the plaintiff if he understands that we are now on videotape, that this deposition is being videotaped.
Yes.
When we last spoke, was the witness assuming the identity of Paul Bonacci?
Yes.
Who is the witness now?
Could I make a suggestion that we have both the plaintiff and his counsel acknowledge that they have no objection pursuant to the rules which provide for notice of videotape deposition, that they're agreeable to this portion of the deposition being taped?
We certainly should do that. Is plaintiff and plaintiff's counsel agreeable to proceeding for a period of time with the video deposition?
Not only am I in agreement, I would join in the request, and that's what I would think is good, yes.
Yes.
And he shifts right on camera, two or three times actually. Kathy Bryans talked about it. I don't know why Bill Cooper was so hard on her, probably because she was a New Ager, but anyway, when you're in this altered state, it's not a demon to be banished from you. It's a part of you. It's another personality. And so even to take it away from the scary, and it is, people should be terrified that our rogue elements in our government are going unhidden the last 150 years making these super soldiers. The Tavistock Institute, the MKUltra program, full citations in the description section below. But let's take it to a fictional thing to just soften it up for a minute here. The most famous fictional case of DID, dissociative identity disorder, or the MKUltra personality altered disorders, or MPD as they used to call it, is Hulky Poo. Hulk is like 5 or 6 people living in Bruce Banner's head, and the demon stronghold Devil Hulk, currently written in by Luciferian, I assume Luciferian, alleged Luciferian 33rd Freemason Al Ewing. So that's reality hidden in plain sight. In fact, I've made lots of videos about all the different weird CIA remote viewing program hints and as above, so below, John D., Aleister Crowley, love affair, little hints hidden in the comic book. You know, I've already written the story of redeeming that, you know. But even in that, Hulk eats a fallen angel at the end of time. But anyway, Hulk is like a bunch of alters living in what people would refer to as a system. And they get along in this system and they try to coexist. But what the world wants you to think is that that's how you have to deal with it because there's nothing else you could do. And if you, in my opinion, I mean, like it's helped me, obviously. I went from going about 1,000 miles an hour to slowing down to a brisk pace, where occasionally I run away with myself. Is that a good enough analogy? But in the case of Hulk or whatever, they just try to work together to become a better system. And with prayer and counseling, and I pray for Yeshua Jesus to help me one day at a time, but you want to put all that away and do what's called integrating altars. And I'm pretty sure I've done most of that. I think I have just my protector altar left, the guy who's going to come out and whoop some ass if anybody messes with me. And like, I can handle myself. I've actually had guys with guns come to my house before, and I'm still here. And that was me. I didn't need no friggin' Hulk to come out of me and smash them. But the point is they got to be integrated. It's not the way it's supposed to be. And so, like, I noticed as far as integration goes, like in my 30s, when I started breaking down, I started having skills I never remembered having, like, really. Like, I had studied martial arts as a kid, but I had swords, combat training skills that just suddenly sort of appeared. Even though I'm a pretty broken down, you know, average build dude, I'm not claiming to be some super duper tough guy. I've lost as many fights as I've won. But other skills, like singing, like even to the point of like freestyling lyrics out of nowhere where I could just make them up as I go along. If there's already a verse and a chorus established, then I could just do it at will, ad nauseum. And so I had to test that. I started singing live with my friends' bands back on Vancouver Island. It was fun. Well, I shouldn't say friends. They're acquaintances. I was just being Weird Joel, so I had the typical effect I do on people out there. And but it was fun. I had to test it and see if I could do it. And first try, I did a Tragical Hip cover of Wheat Kings. And a couple more times since then. But things like that, or I guess just sort of personality traits or cravings for things. It's hard to explain. When you integrate personalities, you get to know what they knew. Essentially, it's hard to explain. But it's like most systems don't know about the other personalities. That they leave each other notes, that's common, you know. My entire walls is notes. So if I ever need to, I just quickly write on a note on my wall here. And so the danger of all this is that people would think of it from a New Age or materialistic, atheistic point of view instead of turning to Yeshua, Jesus Christ, for salvation. And obviously I've said it in other videos. I don't care if people like or dislike me for being Christian. I found out my grandpa was a Luciferian, maybe even a full-on Satanist, 33rd level Freemason. What would you have done? Would you have A, gone mad? Probably. B, became a Christian like me? Or C, become a Sith Lord Freemason like them? Like, your choices are kind of slim to none at that point, knowing that you are maybe a government-controlled, created Weapon X type person, realistically speaking. Just my DNA is what's important to them. I'm not important to them. Well, maybe. But, and then, you know, you're just going to go back to the way your life used to be? No. And anyone who would get in your face about such things, if you're suffering as I suffer, know that they have no idea what you're talking about, and that's why they're reacting that way, because to them it's like, well, just take the garbage out. Yeah, the garbage is bigger than your house, you know, and the pile, forget about it. I'm getting out of hand with the analogies right now. But, you know, that's the best way to look at it. Start by watching the citations in the description section below. Like, even members of my family, when I referred them to Aaron and Melissa Dykes' movie, The Minds of Men, which is like almost 4 hours of solid information, and it stops in 1977, really. But yeah, like therein lies the case. There's this chart right here. It says the first human was cloned in 1977. Now, I don't know if that means a full-on consciousness transfer or just a clone. So the guy raised a clone of himself kind of thing. But who that was, who knows? Chances are most times parents wouldn't even know. They would be raising what they think is their kids. Maybe they do know. Maybe it's another case of alters. Everybody in these families could be shattered. The programming, and people ask me all the time, well, how do you know for sure? And it's like, I don't. But most of the initial programming he's done is in the first 3 to 5 years. And then say if my dad found out, freaked out, maybe even had something to do with Grandpa dying, and then after that I was somehow spared of the rest of it, like say James Casbolt went through, then it would explain why I'm just sort of somehow swept aside like a CIA throwaway or whatever. But all I have is questions. This is just I don't have a lot of answers. But I have to laugh or I'll just, it's like the other day on the Owen Benjamin podcast, even the guy from Europe was talking about some stuff. And in the way he said it, Owen laughed. And the guy's like, why are you laughing? This is not funny. It's like, of course it's not funny. But a lot of people would use laughter as like a way of coping. It's just how Westerners are. And so with me, I've compartmentalized this so much that it doesn't really bother me anymore. Like, I'm almost 50 years old. I know I don't look it. But although I got the teeth of a 1,000-year-old, like poor Gollum or something. Smeagol has only 6 teeth, precious. There's another one, like I've always been able to do voices and stuff, or draw, or sing, or write, or snowboard, or I'm good at sports when I play them, like not so much football, but like, I don't know. The whole key to this is integration, not system management, I guess is the point. And that you can't look at an altered personality, DID condition without God. It's like AA. People would accuse AA of being a cult because you have to agree there's a higher power. There is a higher power. I mean, come on. Everybody who's ever been in the CIA remote viewing program has astral projected, like moi, like other members of my family. Guess what, world? Astral projecting proves there's a soul. It proves the atheists are insane, and that atheism is the religion. Scientism, and that gets into a lot of other topics, but so there's a spiritual answer to this, and it's not in some laboratory or in some therapist's office couched between the cushions. It's the answer is Yeshua Jesus Christ. So ponder my words, check out the description section below, and I'll just say, peace out, baby.